Hello everyone, welcome back to the Daily Knitter podcast. My name is Tiffany. In today's video, we have some completed objects, my usual slate of whips, and some fun acquisitions as well. So if you're interested, then keep on watching. My first very exciting completed object is my Storm Sweater Junior. I have it here. I am just going to tease it in this video because I have already uploaded an entire Make With Me vlog about this sweater. And at the beginning of that vlog, I actually go through all of the details as to the pattern, the construction, my yarn choice, all of the good stuff. And then the rest of that video is a vlog of me filming the process of making this sweater. So if you are interested in that, please go watch that video. I'll have it as a card and linked down below. But I did want to show it because technically, since my last podcast episode, this is a finished object and I love it so much. I've already worn it a handful of times and I can't wait to continue wearing it through the winter season. The next completed object I have is my Melange sweater baby. It is a pattern by Petite Knit. This I knitted in the 6 to 9 month old size. And the yarns that I used, I wanted to use up some of the yarn in my stash. So the red part is Saniscarn Double Sunday in Scarlet, and the blue sleeves are Saniscarn Perfect in the color Jolly Blue. I used 4mm needles for the body and the sleeves, and then 3.5mm needles for all of the ribbing, which I believe is the same needle size that she calls for in her pattern as well. I did manage to hit gauge, which I'm not surprised by because I've knit with both of these yarns before and other projects in 4mm needles, so I didn't gauge swatch. Not like I would gauge swatch normally anyways, but yeah, I did hit gauge, and the finished product does give you a pretty oversized sweater. This is definitely bigger than I think a standard 6 to 9 month old would be, but similar to a lot of her adult patterns, a lot of her baby patterns tend to be oversized as well. For me, I don't mind. I knitted the 6 to 9 months because his due date is the end of April, so I figured by the time he could fit into this, it would be winter. However, again, looking at it, I feel like he probably won't be wearing this until he's closer to a year old, but that's okay. I'm just gonna go with the flow, and again, I just wanted to use up a lot of my stash yarn and put it into projects that would be cute like this and not just have them sitting on my shelf. And it's just so precious. It created such a cute little sweater. I'm obsessed with little baby clothes and I've been really enjoying making him pieces here and there. And the reasoning why I decided to use 2 different yarns is because basically by the time I got done with the body, I was worried that I didn't have enough of the red yarn to finish the sleeves, and so I decided to just use a new ball of this blue yarn, and I'm glad I did because I had maybe this much yarn left over, and I definitely had less of that quantity in the red yarn, so I would have had to shorten the sleeves by a lot if I was making the red yarn. And instead, I just used the rest of the red yarn I had to do the neck finishing. The construction of this sweater is exactly the same as the Melange man sweater, just in baby form, so I was already very familiar. You essentially knit the back panel flat in a rectangle, and then you pick up for the shoulders. See where I picked up here? You knit the shoulders separately, and then you combine them at the front, knit the front panel, and then join in the round, knit in the round, pick up for the sleeves, 1 by 1 ribbing bind off for all of the finishing. And it is called the Melange sweater baby because the way the pattern is intended is to have you knit with 2 fingering weight yarns in different colors so that you get that melange effect. And that is how I knit my husband's Melange sweater. However, again, I wanted to use up the scrap yarn that I had, so instead of doing fingering weight yarn and going out and purchasing more yarn, I just used 2 DK weight yarns, two different colors, that's what I mean, but one strand held single, and that basically gives you the same gauge. And now I have this pattern, and it's great. It's cool because, again, whatever yarn you choose to use will give you a different look, and this is a very different look from the Melange photo. But now that I have the pattern, I could easily knit him the Melange version as well in the future, which I am planning on doing. The last completed object I have is on the blocking mats. I'm just gonna count it because it's a hat. Usually if it was a garment, I wouldn't count it as a completed object, but I feel like because it's a small accessory and it just needs to dry, I'm gonna count it. This is the Muscle Burrow hat. If you weren't familiar already with the oval size, it always reminds me of like a track and field track, the way that it looks. But this is now the third Muscle Burrow hat that I have knitted. If you are confused as to how this becomes a hat, essentially you fold the tube in on itself, so the actual length of the hat is half of this plus a brim length if you knitted it to the length with a brim, which I usually do because I like all of my beanies to have a brim. That's like the best way I can describe this hat. It's a very popular pattern, so I don't think I need to explain it further than that. I'm sure most of you have either knit one yourself or are familiar with the construction of this hat. The previous two Muscle Burrows that I knit were both with fingering weight yarn, and I just wanted to experiment and try knitting it with a thicker yarn just to see what it would look like. And I actually really enjoy how this looks. The yarn that I use is by Knit Picks. It's Knit Picks Capra DK, which is 85% merino wool and 15% cashmere. It's a very, very, very soft yarn. This is in the color Magnolia Heather. And originally when I purchased this yarn, I purchased 6 balls, which gives me not enough quantity to knit anything really. Maybe a vest I could have knitted it with, but I have no idea what I was thinking. I probably blacked out when I placed the order and wasn't thinking straight and just purchased a odd quantity of yarn. So this sat in my stash for a little bit, and eventually I just decided to use it essentially as an experiment to do a DK weight Muscle Burrow. And I'm glad I did because this fabric that it created is nice and dense. I went down a needle size, so this is knitted in 3.5 millimeter needles, whereas for this yarn, it really recommends like a 4 to 4.5 millimeter needle gauge, maybe even up to a 5. But I wanted it to create a denser fabric. In my head, that's what I envisioned. And I have to say it came out exactly how I wanted it to. The fabric is really nice and dense, and with the blocking, it's softened a little bit. So I'm curious to see how it'll fit. I did try it on pre-blocking and it was pretty tight. Not tight enough where I couldn't wear it, so I'm fine with even post-blocking if it ends up being that tight. It's not the end of the world. The hat will get looser with wear throughout the day, so it's okay if it's a little tight. But I do think even just visually looking at it, it's bloomed a little and softened a little. So I think it'll fit actually very perfectly on my head. I'm sure I will insert photos of what it looks like on, because by the time this video is edited, it will have dried and I will have taken photos of it. But I just love the color. It's this beautiful dusty pink color. It actually matches my pink Levi's puffer jacket that I have pretty well. So I think that'll be a cute little coordinated look. And I really like this hat in this weight. So now I'm like questioning everything, and I'm like, should I be knitting Muscle Burrows in a DK weight yarn? Like maybe. I do really love my fingering weight version, and I am planning to knit another one in a fingering weight yarn, but it's nice to know that I can knit it in a DK weight so that it's a quicker project, but that the hat that comes out isn't too bulky. That was one of my main worries, is that with the DK weight, because at some point for the most of the hat, it's folded double, so that's DK weight doubled, and then the brim is like DK weight quadrupled, and I was just worried it was going to get me this like giant beanie for some reason, but that is not the case whatsoever. It looks really good on, and this is now convincing me to knit this in a DK weight, at least for gifts, because that way it goes by a lot quicker as a gift knit, but the product still looks really polished and nice. And yeah, I'm very excited to wear this. Oh, and I forgot to mention, but the size that I usually knit for the muscle burrow is the child to adult small size, and that fits my head for reference. Next, let's get into my whips. I am still working on my Tombow tee. I'm not even sure if I've made progress since my last video because I pretty much was exclusively working on the storm sweater, but here it is, just gonna show it real quick if you're interested. At some point, I will go through all the details about it in when it's a finished object. So usually when I talk about whips, I just mention the pattern and the design and things like that. But this is the Tombow tee by Florence. I'm knitting it in the second size, the size B. And the yarn I'm using is Knitting for Olive Pure Silk held single in the color Brown Bear. Black Bear? Brown Bear. One or the other, black or brown bear. Now I'm like, which one is it? Let me look it up. Brown bear. And on screen, it really just looks black, but in person, it really is like a very deep brown, very cool tone brown color. And I'm curious to see how this is gonna block out because I've heard that the pure silk creates a really nice fabric once it's blocked. And knitting with it currently, it's like a little rough. So I'm really curious to see how the fabric is gonna transform. This is my whip that is my low pressure whip. I'm gonna work on it when I wanna work on it. And if I don't wanna work on it, it's okay. It can sit on the needles. I am not planning on wearing this until the summer. And there's honestly no even telling if I'm gonna fit into it in the summer because I'm giving birth at the end of April. So there's also a strong chance that I won't even really fit into it, but we'll just have to see. And yeah, we do plan on going to China at some point with our newborn. So if this is still not quite done yet, this will be my main project that I bring on vacation because then I'll know that I'll get it done because it'll be the only thing that I bring pretty much. But just wanted to show you that I am still technically working on it. For my main whip that I am now working on is another sweater. This is the Amy sweater, also by Petite Knit. And this is the size extra small, which is the second size. This is a fairly new pattern that she published. And originally I wasn't very attracted to the pattern actually, until I saw Amy from Knee Knits knit a version of it. And I really liked her version. And I want to say hers is also in a navy color. I could be wrong, but I think that inspired me to also knit mine in a navy color. And I just liked the way hers looked on her. And I feel like we have similar body types and she's also Asian. I don't know if that influenced my decision at all, but I do like her style. And so when I saw it on her, I was like, ooh, I kind of want to knit one of these. So that's what I did. The yarn that I'm using is the Knit Picks cotton, woolen cotton, and it is 50% merino wool, 50% Pima cotton. It is a DK weight yarn. The colorway that I got is Peacoat Heather. I just really have been wanting to try a wool cotton blend yarn for a while. I know Knitting for Olive has like the merino cotton, I think in like a fingering weight, and Sandisgarn has maybe a version of that as well. But I was just on the Knit Picks website and they're having a lot of sales right now. So I was like, why not try their version? And it's really soft and I really like it. I'm very sensitive to wool actually. And so I thought the 50% wool, 50% cotton combo would be a nice fabric to try and perhaps won't be as itchy on my skin because of the cotton, but the wool adds bounce to it. So it really knits up very similar to a wool. If you didn't tell me this had cotton in it and I was just knitting with it, I would never know that it even has cotton in it. So that's really nice. And I've been really enjoying working on this so far. It's a really nice construction. Again, I'll talk about all those details once it's a finished object, but I've been really enjoying it so far, and this is definitely the main project that I'm working on currently. Next up, I have a crochet project, which is exciting because I have not picked up crochet since I switched to knitting. And you might recognize this yarn, but from my last podcast episode, I had I had initially wanted to knit my baby a baby blanket, and I purchased this yarn. It's just a Yarn Bee yarn from Hobby Lobby, but it's nice and soft. It's that kind of chenille fabric. And I found just a free Lion brand pattern that was basically all garter stitch. But I just found that every time I went to reach for it to work on it, I didn't want to. I don't know why. Maybe it was just the thought of knitting a giant rectangle wasn't appealing. The yarn, while soft, is not like that fun to knit with compared to a wool. And I don't know what was stopping me, but I thought about it a little more. I ended up frogging it, and then I was like, why am I not crocheting him a blanket? I've crocheted both my nieces multiple blankets, and for fabric to wear, I much prefer knitting. I think that's why a lot of people end up moving to knitting, to knitting garments, because the fabric that you get is just unparalleled. It's beautiful compared to like a crochet sweater. So I think in my head, I just had this weird prejudice now against crocheting anything, even though that was just so stupid, because I feel like for a large piece like a blanket, crocheting is perfect because you still get a really nice fabric, like a drapey fabric out of it, but it goes by so much quicker. So much quicker. Just for reference, I mean, this is like one row of single crochet, and that's like almost a centimeter. So essentially, to get him an 80 by 80 centimeter blanket, I only have to crochet like 80 rows, which compared to knitting that size of a blanket, no way. So I've been really enjoying working on this blanket. I just work on it here and there. I leave it in the family room. So when we're watching TV and I want to give my hands a break from knitting, I'll just pick this up, and it's super quick. I'm crocheting it on a 5mm crochet hook, so that's also making it go by really quick. And I'm really liking the fabric that's coming out. It's just a single crochet blanket, and then once you crochet the entire thing, you add a scallop border with like single or double crochets, and it's very simple. I just Googled a free pattern. I'll link it down below in case you're interested, but if you know how to crochet stuff, like it's a very basic base pattern, I suppose. And I'm really liking the color kind of variation that this is creating as well. I think it looks really nice, and I think it'll just be a sweet little blanket. And the other nice thing about the crochet too is because it takes less time for you to finish a project. With something like a baby blanket, I'm sure it's going to get destroyed and gross. I mean, I'm hoping he'll have this as more of his like cuddly blanket, so he won't be as hard on it, but I am planning on wrapping it, him in it as a baby and stuff. So we'll just have to see how well this holds up. But the other crochet blankets that I've crocheted for my nieces have held up pretty well because I mostly crochet with acrylic yarn, and those you can machine wash. And to my knowledge, they are still in rotation and heavily used and still holding up pretty well. So I'm pretty confident this will hold up well, and even if it doesn't, it's okay because it didn't take me that long to make, and I can always make him another one. So I'm glad I made the switch, and I'm excited to see this finished. In this last section, like I promised, I do have quite a few fun acquisitions to show you all. I recently went to go check out a semi-local yarn shop. I live near Red Bank, New Jersey, which is where Mother Knitter is located. So that's kind of, I think of as my base or home yarn shop. I go to knit nights there as well. It's a really fun time. They are a Sandisgarn distributor, so the bulk of their inventory is Sandisgarn, and they also carry some local hand-dyed yarns as well. But there's another yarn shop further down south by the shore that's about a 30-minute drive from my house called Grace and Pearl. It's in Neptune, New Jersey. And I've been wanting to check it out for a while, and I just happened to have time yesterday, so I decided to drive down and check them out. And they have a pretty big variety of yarns. They have Knitting for Olive, Sorella, Malabrigo, Woolfolk, Cape May Fibers, which is a local New Jersey like dyer, as well as Chelsea, which is also another local hand dyer thing. I don't know what to call it, like person. I don't know, that hand dyes yarn. They also had some Lang yarns and some other random brands that I just I can't remember. I will put their website down below where they list a lot of the brands that they work with in case you're interested. And they also have an online shop, I believe, as well. So even if you're not local, I believe you can purchase most of their yarns via their online shop too. It's a really cozy yarn shop. I wish I was able to take some footage, but they had some people doing like a knitting group there, and it was kind of a small shop. I didn't feel confident just going in and filming, and I didn't really want to ask her if I could film. So you can kind of get a sense of what it looks like, I think, from their website photos, but it was like a really cute space, and they really pack it full of yarn. So even though upon entry it looks really small, they had a huge variety of yarns, and there's actually 2 rooms in it. So I just spent a good hour in there just touching all the yarns and looking through all the yarns. Like I said, the Mother Knitter yarn shop mostly carries Sandisgarn, so some of these other yarns I have only ever seen on other people's YouTube channels or online and have never been able to feel them in person. So it was really fun to go in and be able to really touch all of these yarn brands that I was interested in. So I purchased 3 different yarns. The first one I have actually cast on as a project, but I wanted to show it in this section. But this is the Malabrigo yarn in their Rios line, which is a worsted weight, 100% superwash merino wool. I don't know if all of Malabrigo yarns are hand dyed, but from what I could tell, they were mostly all hand dyed. So this is in the color 842 Illusion. It's this beautiful purpley, I don't know, purple, green, brown color. It definitely reads mostly purple, but it has some of those nice mossy green and almost like brownie tones in them as well. And I purchased 2 skeins, or 2 hanks of them. And the shop owner did mention that Malabrigo, while hand dyed, that they do pretty large batches of all of their hand dyed yarns. So if you were to purchase a sweater quantity of this yarn, you wouldn't have to do a ton of yarn management. So you wouldn't have to do a lot of helical knitting or alternating skeins. That's what she said. I mean, even looking at these 2, there definitely is some variation, and that just comes with hand-dyed yarn. So for me, I'm just not as confident I don't even really know what helical knitting is. I need to look that up. I just know that that's what you're supposed to do with hand-dyed yarns. And alternating skeins seems relatively easy, but it's just kind of fussy. And for me, when I'm knitting a garment, I just want to go. I don't want to have to do yarn management. So when I purchase hand-dyed yarn, I usually like to buy enough quantity for a smaller accessory. So whether that be a hat or gloves or a scarf. And so I purchased 2 hanks of this, which should get me enough to knit at least a medium-sized Sophie shawl. And that is what I have on these little needles right now. It's just a tiny little triangle. And what's kind of funny that I just realized is that my Knit Picks needles kind of look exactly like this yarn. They really do match. It almost looks like I coordinated, which is funny. It's total coincidence, but maybe that was subtly influencing my yarn choice. But yeah, it's beautiful. It's so soft, and I think this will knit up into a really nice Sophie shawl. And I've been wanting to knit the Sophie shawl pattern for a while, and because I bought 2 hanks, what I'm just gonna do is do all of the increases using this 1 hank, and then I will use this for all of the decreases. So even if there is a slight variation, it'll look intentional, it'll look like it's half-half, and yeah, can't wait to show you all what that looks like. The next yarn I got, I'm super excited about. I finally got my hands on some Sorella yarn. I think Sorella is very popular in the knitting community, but they mostly sell online. I feel like they are in some knitting shops, clearly, because I was able to purchase this in the store, but they also have like a very strong online presence, and they do limited drops of different collections. This is part of their Taylor Swift collection, or was it called their Eras Tour collection? I don't know. They dropped it while Taylor Swift was still on her Eras Tour, and they had so many beautiful hand-dyed yarns inspired all by her different songs and different eras. So this is from 1989, which is one of my favorite eras, or I guess albums of hers. And I just love all the colors in this. Are you kidding me? I mean, obsessed. The purples, the pinks, the brown. I'm obsessed. I was able to go see her live in Munich when my husband and I did our whole Switzerland trip. We did a special stopover in Munich to go see her live, and it was amazing. It was worth every penny. And since then, I've been really wanting to get my hands on this, but once the pre-sale was over, which I think it sold out probably in minutes, it's gone. So I just kind of gave up any hope of getting my hands on it, but I saw it at Grace and Pearl. They had this one, and I think they had one or two other from that line. I don't remember which ones they had, but 1989 was one that I had my eye on during the Instagram promos that they were doing. So I was so happy that they had this in store. This is the nylon sock base. It's 80/20 superwash merino wool nylon. This is a 100 gram hank, and it comes with 400 yards, and they recommend using a 2.75 millimeter needle. I do plan on making this into a Musselburgh hat, and I should have just about enough to make the size that I'm going to make. And yeah, I'm pretty set on just making this into a Musselburgh, and I'm really excited. Lastly, they had a decent amount of Woolfolk yarn, which is a brand that I was not familiar with or hadn't heard of since going to the shop, and they have really nice yarn. It was really, really soft in person. This is 100% merino wool, but even in the merino wools that I feel like this one is really soft. Like, it doesn't give me any itch whatsoever on my neck. So I decided to buy enough of a quantity to make a mini scarf. I'm thinking about, well, let me tell you about the yarn first. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. This is their Tove DK, so their DK weight yarn. It's about 20 to 21 stitch gauge using 3.75 to 4.0 millimeter needles. And this is the color TDK00. I'm not sure if that's their undyed colorway or if that's just this bright white, but it's essentially a very natural white color. And it's very basic compared to the other yarns I got, clearly, but I actually don't have any knitted accessories that are in basic colors. I guess technically my first Musselburgh hat is in a light blue color, so yes, it's like not it is kind of a basic color, but I don't have anything in any neutrals, and I just thought this white looked really nice. I don't know, it's very basic, but I still think it's a nice color, and I think this would look really cute in as a little mini scarf. I'm probably gonna just do the Sophie scarf, but I do want to do some research and see if there's another mini scarf pattern that I might want to try out, just because I've knitted so many Sophie scarves before, and this is a more special yarn, so I kind of want to do a more unique project with it, but I'm not really sure what to do. So if you have any pattern recommendations or alternatives to the Sophie scarf that you like that would take less than 50 grams, because it's a 50-gram ball, then please put that pattern suggestion down below, and I'm happy to look at it, because I would definitely be open to knitting something other than a Sophie scarf, but I only have this one quantity. I could go back and get more, like, because the yarn shop is not that far away, and this is just their regular dyed colors, so I'm sure I could get another hank of this and not have it have any color variation, but I think this quantity is definitely enough for a Sophie scarf, so I think it'll probably be enough for any other mini scarf that I want to make as well. So that was it for yarn acquisitions. Next, I just wanted to share a fun project bag that I purchased. This is from the brand Sula. I was definitely influenced by Instagram, but I was in sore need of a larger project bag. I have a smaller one that I purchased off Amazon a long time ago, and that one's great for my on-the-go whips for smaller things, because it's like maybe like this big of a bag, but for anything larger like a sweater or a garment, it doesn't quite fit well into that bag and I tend to have to kind of squish it down, or I just have to resort using a bag in my collection, and I didn't have a dedicated project bag for my bigger projects. So I was influenced. I was in the market for one. They have a ton of colors. I picked this nice cheery bright yellow, which was on sale, but I also figured because it's just a project bag, I don't need it to be super neutral, and I wanted it to be in a fun color. It comes with tons of pockets. They advertise it as like you can put needles and crochet hooks here, but you can also put paint brushes or pencils or pens. This is marketed as like an artist bag in general, not just a knitting bag, but clearly in the promo photos you can see that they're also targeting crocheters and knitters. And each side comes with just so many pockets. I mean, there's probably like 30 pockets altogether on the front and back. You can see all of these are mini pockets here as well. And the inside, it's just this open cavity with no zippers, which is great because when you have yarn in here and you're knitting out of the bag, you don't want it to catch on anything. So I actually like that it's intentionally created with no closures and no zippers. And the inside just has a little embroidery that says "You do you." Let me see if you can see it. Maybe not. It's all the way at the inside, but it just says "You do you" with like white thread, which is kind of cute. And it does come with 2 pockets on the inside as well, just to provide a little more separation. I don't know, it's just nice. Like, I like that it has tons of little nooks and crannies where I can put little things that I need. And when I go to my knit nights, this bag is plenty big enough to fit my project, my yarn, my extra needles or little case of stitch markers, my wallet, my water bottle, snacks, all of that. And I can just bring this one bag with me on the go and not have to have a project bag and my purse. So I really like this size. I think it was created really intentionally. I'm sure they created it with artists, like in collaboration with artists, I would have to assume. And yeah, I just wanted to show it to you all because it's super cute and I've been using it a lot when I'm on the go recently. Alrighty, so those were all of my acquisitions, and that is it for this podcast. I hope you all enjoyed. Again, if you want to check out my storm sweater vlog, I will have it here at the end as well. I would love it if you went to go check out that video. I put in a lot of effort, not into just filming it, but knitting the sweater and also editing the video, and I'm really proud of how it turned out. So I would love it if you went to go watch it and gave it a thumbs up if you like. Otherwise, I will see you in my next video. Bye.